So I would suppose that now would be a good time to kind of hop into the buying process because people who are self-employed, they probably have a lot of questions when it comes to this industry. But before we hop into looking at it from the self-employed perspective, could you explain exactly for people who may not be familiar with it, what exactly is like the mortgage lending process just by itself?
So the mortgage lending process, pretty much by itself, is that the first thing and foremost is a lender is going to ask you to fill out a loan application. Um, we have to have a loan application before we can even like disclose, to you what the current rates are. I mean, there's lenders out there that'll just throw out a number. They'll say, oh well, the interest rates are 7% or 6% or 5%,
Hmm.
but they may say that, but honestly, they don't really know what you qualify for until they are reviewing the loan application in entirely. So, like you may say that okay, well, I check Credit Karma, and my credit score is a 750. Well, on the mortgage side of things, we look at the score a little bit different. We look at the actual FICO score, and you may see a 750 on Credit Karma, but our system shows us a 720 or maybe a 725. Which there is a difference when it comes to the interest rate in that aspect. Um, so first thing you have to fill out a mortgage application. On the mortgage application, the most important things are going to be your name, your date of birth, and your social. And that's because we pretty much can't move forward without that information. And then that's going to be your marital status, because we need to know if there's going to be another spouse on there that, income we can possibly use, or if not income, then the liabilities that we're going to have to calculate as far as to make sure that your DTI, and DTI means debt to
That's
ratio,
the income ratio.
yeah, is in the right threshold for us to be able to move forward with the loan. So after you complete the application, next is going to be financials. So now this basically everyone does that first part. Now the second part is going to be, sorry, it's the lights are in motion, so I have to move around a little bit.
Okay.
Can you still see me good though?
Yeah, I can still see.
Okay. Um, so the second part is going to be submitting your financial documents. We're going to need a driver license or a valid ID, and then after that, it's going to be 2 months of bank statements, and if you are 2 months of pay stubs, and 2 years of W-2 if you're employed. If you're self-employed, then it's going to be your ID, 2 months of bank statements. Now you can go a couple different routes. You can either do 12 months of bank statements, and you can do a bank statement loan, or you can do your tax return. And what we're going to look at is your 1040 and your Schedule C, and it's going to be line item 31 to see what your actual income is what your actual income is, minus expenses and everything of that sort. And so,
Okay.
yeah, that's what we would utilize for a business owner and W 2. Now, if you are a W 2 employee, it does make things a lot easier because we won't necessarily look at tax returns, even if you own a business. We can qualify you just by using W 2, and we don't have to look at tax returns or your expenses. That we don't have to take that in consideration. Now, for business owners, if you're not using 12 months of bank statements, we have to have tax returns.
Okay. So, which one of the two do you feel would be best for someone who is a business owner, who is self-employed or freelancer to use? The 12 months of bank statements or the tax returns? I know you said
Uh,
that if the bank statements aren't available, if that's not an option, then you have to go to the tax returns.
mhm.
But in your opinion, which one is the better to use for
So
someone who's self-employed?
the better to use if you file. I know being a business owner, like realtors, everything. Most of your money gets ate up in expenses. To where you're taking clients out on dinners or gas, like car, stuff like that.
This
That's
software that I'm using is not free.
yeah, exactly. So if you're anything, like those particular industries, you're gonna have a lot of expenses. And so what we find, in most cases, that bank statements are going to be the best option. Now, the thing is that when you do a bank statement loan, the interest rate is going to be higher than it would be if you're utilizing your tax returns.
Hmm.
Uh, being that the bank statement is pretty much going to be variable income. And how we calculate your income off the bank statements is that we add up all your deposits over the last 12 months and then we divide that by 12. And whatever that number comes out to is your income. And then we still have to deduct your liabilities from it, such as credit cards, auto payments, if you have any existing mortgages or loans or things of that sort, student loans too. We have to deduct those expenses from what your average income is per month.
So would you say it sounds like they both have pros and cons. So
Yeah.
obviously, like a tax return, and like you said, your expenses will be reflected in the tax return. But if the numbers line up, it could give you a more favorable interest rate versus using the bank statements.
Hmm.
So that is something to consider.
Yeah. And so the other thing is that, let's say if your business has not been um, in existence for more than 2 years or longer, bank statement will be the best option to use,
Mhm.
because if you're going to be utilizing your tax returns, we have to have the business in effect for at least 2 years.
Right.
Mhm. But bank statements we can do 12 months.
So would you say, and this is important because some people, well, you know what? I think it's becoming more common. I mean, this is called the side hustle society. So it's
Mhm.
not uncommon for people to have multiple streams of income or maybe even multiple businesses. Well, I say businesses lightly. I'll just say multiple streams of income. If someone is planning on buying a house within the next, I'll say 1 to 3 years, it is a good accounting practice to have separate bank accounts and keep everything separate for your income streams.
Mhm.
But if your goal is to buy a house in the next year, 1 to 3 years, would you say it's a good idea to just go ahead and bite the bullet and start making it so that all those direct deposits come under one bank account, so that it'll make this
It,
process, it'll give you more optionality?
I would agree, if only if you're the sole owner of that business,
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah. This is assuming because
yeah.
obviously there are some businesses where you have partners, but a lot of people that listen to this show, they'll be self-employed or they'll be like freelancers. So like you could take someone that um what example one? Let's say someone's a graphic designer, right?
Mhm.
So they make money graphic designing, they're on Fiverr, they're on Upwork, they have clients in real life too. So they make their money that way, and that's going into one bank account. But let's say they have a YouTube channel and it's monetized and it makes like maybe $1,000 per month, and they have that in another bank account because technically that's another business, even though they haven't incorporated, they're sole proprietor.
Mhm.
So if they're looking to buy a house soon, okay, well, let me just go ahead and take that YouTube income and reroute the banking information to just have it all under one account. They'll give me more options when I'm talking to you. When you say,
Yeah. Yes, I definitely do agree with that. Just because we're going to take 12 months of that one particular bank account. We're not going to use like all the other different bank accounts. And so if they have it all going into one, now their average per month is going to be higher
mhm.
than it would if they were having separate bank accounts for those different businesses. And as long as they have an LLC, I mean, we can run it all under the same business.
Cool, cool. That's definitely good for people to know because, like I said, it is a good accounting practice to separate things
Hmm.
like that. But when you're looking to buy a house, and this is why it's important to really plan out. I'll say plan out your life in at least 5 year intervals. That
Yeah.
way, you can go ahead and do something like this, and you can just do it for 2 to 3 years. The
Hmm.
moment you get in the house, go back to separating everything for the accounting purposes.
Yeah. And so on the mortgage, well, we have to like verify that the income is going to continue for at least the next 3 years in order to be able to loan on any property. And so that
Mhm.
I would say that is a good business practice to have. But when you are trying to buy a house, you want to show, if you're utilizing bank statement, you want to show the maximum amount of earnings, that you can. Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is actually a good question, but some people ultimately the tax return kind of serves as a profit and loss statement. That ultimately that's what that is in this context. But for businesses that have their own profit and loss statements, does that really come into play at all here, or not really?
It does, because if we're using tax returns, we have to have a year-to-date P&L statement, meaning that from January 1 to whatever date that you're going to be closing on or starting the loan process on. We need to have a profit and loss statement showing that the income is the same as reflected on the tax returns.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So if well, this is a good business practice you should be doing anyway.
Yeah.
But just for argument's sake, if you are going to be doing the tax refund process, you do need to have the profit and loss statement too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of that process.
Mm-hmm. And we will, like, for either one, we will need like a letter from the CPA, just stating that, hey, them purchasing this home, it's not going to, impact the business in a negative way or anything of that sort. So that pretty much gives us our, guarantee, that this income is going to be continued for the next 3 years as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And just kind of bringing it back to the smaller, like self-employed or freelancer, someone that doesn't have a CPA, they're sole proprietor. Does that still come? Like, what do they do if they don't have a CPA?
If they don't have a CPA, if you're a great lender, you could possibly refer them, someone, or they would have to have the person that prepares their taxes in order to be able to state that they are financially secure, as far as the remainder time for us to be able to loan.
Okay, so that means it doesn't have to be a CPA. It could also be an enrolled agent.
Yeah.
Okay.